So I'm back on the little map, and we're halfway through World War Three right now. You know, it's getting a bit rough in there. For a reminder, it's ITL and Warsaw Pact against the Chinese faction, as well as these guys are involved in the Russian side. So the Russians are actually much more underprepared than they thought for this war with China, and now they're suffering for it, and they're suffering a lot. Um, their men here have been attrition. They lost Vladivostok. Um, and they strategically pulled out of here because all their men were starving, and if the Chinese take over, they'll be starving. But the Chinese were very prepared for this because they'd been planning an invasion of Russia since the 40s, or since their victory in the Civil War at least, which was in 49, so let's say since the 50s. Um, they never particularly liked their form of communism. I should smudge my screen, or is it just... No, it's not. There you go. Yeah. So now the Chinese are looking pretty powerful. They pushed the Russians back, and they start an offensive in the south. So their primary focus right now is pushing the Russians back, and they kick them out here and start a major offensive into Iran and Turkic countries here. Um, so yeah, that's the Chinese set pretty much. And now the Russians are pretty much on the back leg, and they're just going to try and fight them off. Um, who knows how well that'll go though. More, and the Indonesians been doing lots in terms of naval invasions here. Island hop down here, and even landed in is this bit Queensland, Victoria, New South Wales, Perth. Oh no, it might be, and they landed up here as well. So they pretty much got a dominance in the Pacific. The Chinese aided in trying to knock Australia out, and they did about that. This is pretty much the peak of the Chinese faction's expansion, because America are about to, you know, do a funny. So basically, America said to Japan, "See what China's doing. If they beat the Russians back, we're all gonna die, effectively, including you. You're isolated right now." So they say, "Let us get a bomber," because bearing in mind the nukes right now are based on strategic bombers, not missiles, because they were just invented, right? So they said, let us base a bomber out of your countries, go over to China, and we'll just show our power a little bit, and maybe scare them. So, Japan say yes. The year is 1975, pretty sure. And the first nuke from a base in Hiroshima, ironically, they fly over and land one on the Shandong province in Qingdao, let's say. And that's the first nuke ever in history used on China this time. And that's just hit global headlines, obviously, and the Chinese are pretty scared now. On top of that, a major Western offensive in Africa is about to happen. Because we see China pretty much pulling out of Africa. It's not very strategic to hold, but not for them right now in the current situation of it. So they push through Morocco and liberate the north, but guerrillas in the south, or in guerrilla fighters, not actual guerrillas, are holding them off pretty effectively because they're very well trained in that. And then several late naval invasions in Tripoli and other regions of Libya have bridged the gap in the Mediterranean and kicked the Chinese faction out in the Mediterranean. And moreover, they start pushing into the Red Sea in Egypt, and the only thing stopping them is Sahara, pretty much. Then do another landing over here in Somalia, based out of Socotra, and the British do one in Somaliland. And then the Red Sea's coming under threat again, or not? I mean, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. It's under threat. But yeah, so the Russians are now faced with a problem, being that if the West win, they're going to get all the spoils, and they're going to get nothing. So they start implementing tactics from the Second World War called "don't care about human life and win." So that's what they do. They start a mass offensive, millions of men, half, like probably all of which do have guns, and they just start smashing them back. And the Chinese weren't prepared for such a massive offensive, and they start effectively pushing them back, like very well. They liberate the south down here and liberate Persia. They push through Baluchistan and start going into Afghanistan, Kabul. They even managed to spearhead through North Pakistan here and catch them off guard. But that's pretty much impossible to push through, and they might be forced to pull out soon. But anyways, they do start pushing back in Russia and liberating themselves, and do a little bit of work in Mongolia and Xinjiang up here. But that's about it in terms of Russian counteroffensive. So they're doing pretty well for themselves, but they are forced to pull out of northern Pakistan here, just on the basis that it's just a quick spearhead. But yeah, because the Russians are effectively pushing it back because volunteers in South America are flooding over. Specialised in fighting stupid terrain like this, not more like that, because of Peru is similar terrain in terms of lack of supply and heat. Okay, cool. I'll get carried away speaking. But China realised that, hey, where could this bomber come from? Oh, Japan, and they declared war on Japan as well. But Japan do not back down on their commitments to isolation, and do not join a faction but stay independent in the war, which you might think is suicide, but they've been building navy since however long they pulled out. So they've got a pretty powerful navy, and the Chinese aren't really focusing on them. And the Americans do pledge support to them, which is kind of their fault. Well, I mean, it is their fault. So they do send their navy up here to help them out. So there's ITO vessels there, and they also send some port garrison. No, they don't. But wait, yeah, America sent them not in their international water zone, so it's not like breaching or anything. Because Japan refused volunteers. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I'm talking too fast. I'm out of breath. See, I want to do something over here, but I don't know if it's realistic. Yes, it is very realistic. With the growing realization in the Balkans of, hey, Russia can't hold us down anymore, let's do some funny stuff. The Austrians, no, the Austrians join us later, sorry, that's something I wrote down. The Polish kick off, obviously, because they got wrongfully annexed. Big up the Poles. And they kick off against the Russians, but the ITO don't want to anger Russia in this scenario, obviously. And with some shenanigans down in Yugoslavia, we have the Serbs, not the Serbs, what am I about? The Bosnian, no, not the Bosnians, who would it be? Croats. Croatian. What on earth? Oh, yeah, that's when I clicked the wrong thing. We see the Croatians revolting as well, because they've been oppressed by the Serbian government, or Serbian, it will be Serbian, wouldn't it? I was going to say royal family, they're communist. Yeah. In terms of these, the Croatian one is quickly put down because the Yugoslav one of the biggest armies on earth right now, which is pretty cool for them. So that's put down pretty fast. But the Polish one ends up gaining lots of credibility, lots of support from themselves. And even though Russia told their allies in the east to get used to deal with it, no one could, because all their men were being sent over to China and Siberia. So in the end, Poland declared independence from Russia, and they don't do anything to stop them. Well, no, they do something to stop them. The clause is they can't join the ITO, so it's pretty points are going to come back from any point. But Poland is now independent, with these borders. And it looks like Germany might invade them any second now. Probably not. So, in air quotes, well, they're a democratic Germany. They're just Germany, so probably really aggressive. Yeah, I think that's enough for one day. I'm gonna end it next time. I don't know even too. No, what am I on about? I'm really tired. I'm sorry. I need to record earlier. Alright, yes, sorry. We see one last Pacific. This was planning, but I don't know if it was next episode, this episode, but this episode's too short. So we see the Americans, after a hard fought campaign, finally landing in Taiwan from the Philippines. So I'm losing social credit now. Taiwan's back in American hands. But with focus literally anywhere but China right now, they didn't expect this. A landing happens on the Chinese coast, and our heartland is hit, and it kind of gets out of control pretty fast. And large swathes of Chinese land and troops are captured in several big encirclements. They only really get this far because they're starting to reinforce it, and the Chinese might push back now, but who knows. But as we see the Chinese now struggling to, and their allies struggling to hold down what they've taken. The Philippines is now liberated after a series of invasions. And so is Malaya, or half so. It gets about here. And a little island, I don't know why that's blue still, that's weird. It says a little landing on this island as well. Why is this all blue? Well, I mean, not dark blue, obviously this is blue. Yeah, so it's landing there, funny business. And then it's all starting to fall apart a little bit. The Australians kind of get everything together and begin to push, and they liberate the continent, not their colonies. Well, it's not colonies, it's integrated into them. But whatever this island's called when it's unified. So that's Papua New Guinea, but I don't know if the whole island's called that, just one side of it. Anyway, so I assume so out of breath, and I gotta go pee, so I'll see you under that. Goodbye.